Today, we're gonna be going over how to get stronger, specifically to get stronger in the gym, right? So we're not talking about how to get stronger in the real world. We're not talking about CrossFit, powerlifting, any of those other sports. We're talking about how to get stronger week to week, month to month, progressively overloading in the gym, right? When it comes to building muscle. So the question is, how do we get stronger? Well, there are two ways to actually get stronger, and they're very simple, right? The two ways to get stronger are going to be by having better technique and building more muscle. That's literally it. Those are the only two ways that you can get stronger. Now, obviously that's a very simplified example, so let's break it down into more detail. First and foremost, what do I mean by having better technique? Better technique means that you have the ability to maximize your stability, maximize a full range of motion, and to allow yourself to have control through that range of motion to adequately stimulate muscle growth. Now, and it also includes the ability to get close to failure, right? So pushing with intensity as well. So all of those are kind of bundled into having better technique. Let me write those down so that way I don't forget them. Better technique equals more stability, full range of motion, and high motor unit recruitment. That's what MUR stands for. MUR stands for motor unit recruitment. Now, if you don't know what motor unit recruitment is, basically it's just the signals that your brain sends down to your muscles in order for them to contract. There's a bunch of fibers in your muscle. That's what makes up your muscle out of muscle fibers. And obviously, to control those, you have motor units. That's what's contracting against, whatever resistance you're using. Anyway, so stability, full range of motion, and high motor unit recruitment is all we're saying when we're talking about better technique. So if you can get better at having more stability in a movement, so say you're doing something like a bench press and you want to get stronger at the bench press, but you haven't put on any more muscle, you can get better stability. You can learn how to leverage yourself against the pad to generate the most amount of motor unit recruitment. You can train with a full range of motion and get better at that full range of motion to help allow yourself become comfortable in those extra ranges of motion that you normally wouldn't get into, thereby allowing yourself to not only feel more comfortable, more stable, and then drive more force production to the intended muscle. And then high degrees of motor unit recruitment. Obviously, the more stable you are, the more motor units you can actually recruit to then signal to contract the muscle. So you can effectively use more of the existing muscle fibers to then generate more force. So just off of technique alone, you can get stronger. So even if you're not progressively overloading each week and you're not building any new muscle, you can still get stronger just off of technique alone. Awesome. What about building more muscle? How does building more muscle help us get stronger? This one's pretty simple. If you have more muscle fibers to contract, you're gonna be able to put out more energy, more force production is gonna happen. So if you have more muscle mass, you're going to be able to generate more units of force because there's more fibers that are able to contract against resistance, kind of coming back to the high motor unit recruitment. Now, just because you have more muscle mass doesn't mean you're necessarily going to be strong. You do have to train in certain ranges of motion or specifically get good at whatever movement pattern you're trying to do. So say you're someone that's new to bench press, but you have a big chest from doing things like dumbbell bench press, incline bench press. Maybe you do a lot of flies, but you don't often do bench press, but you have a lot of muscle tissue. You're already going to come into that movement relatively strong because you have similar movement patterns and your brain already has that mind-muscle connection to your pecs to be able to contract. But maybe you're someone that doesn't have very large pecs, but you have really good technique. You might even be stronger than someone who doesn't practice the bench, but just has more muscle mass, because the person with more muscle mass who hasn't practiced that specific movement might not be able to recruit as many motor units or might not be able to have as much stability when it comes to actually lifting. So it's really important to make sure that you're maximizing better technique and building more muscle when it comes to actually getting stronger. Ideally, you want to start off a new exercise. So say you're in the gym and it's your first time using a new machine, and you don't know how to use a machine, you're gonna want to stick to building better technique first, progress strength-wise that way, get up to a point where you hit a plateau about 1 to 2 weeks of not being able to progress effectively, even though you're getting better at technique, stability, full range of motion. And for at least up to 3 weeks, you're not progressing past that point, but you've maxed out all your technique. You're gonna then take your current reps and you're gonna drop them down to 6 to 8 to allow yourself to be focused more on building muscle for that new movement. And that should help fix yourself from being stuck at that plateau and allow you to get more muscle mass so you can then progress further. And it takes time to build muscle. You should not be progressing on an exercise every week, especially if you're at the building more muscle stage. When it comes to getting stronger, it takes time to build more muscle, right? And just because you're not progressing on a week-to-week basis doesn't mean you're not growing more muscle. It just means that you haven't necessarily built enough muscle to add on another rep or add on another increment of weight that you're going to increase to progressively overload by. So all in all, there's only 2 ways to get stronger: building better technique and having more muscle mass. If you guys have any more questions, make sure you guys leave a comment down below. But yeah, that's pretty much it. My name is Josh, and I'll see you guys inside the SweatSphere.